Alex Williams, welcome to Humanism Now.
Thank you so much for having me, James. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you.
Well, likewise, I know you've been a friend of Central London Humanists for some time now, and you'll be joining us for our What Humanism Means to Me event on the 18th of September. But I think what would be a great place to start is for our listeners just to understand a bit more about your background and your route, your journey to humanism today, and what brought you to this point.
So I think mine is a fairly typical story, particularly of families which have got heritage from outside of the UK. It's a podcast, so it's worth me saying that I'm from a Caribbean background. And my grandparents came across to the UK first and brought with them a very strong Christian faith, in fact, a Catholic faith, which didn't really dilute all that much in the second generation, my parents' generation. And so by the time it came to me as third generation, I was very conscious of the difference between the strength of religious feeling in many of the older people in my family and the kind of religious apathy in most of my friendship group. So it wasn't really that I had lots of atheists, and certainly not the case that I had lots of humanists around me. It's just that I had people who were really passionate about Christianity in particular. I was going to say religion generally, but actually it was Christianity. You know, every birthday card would be signed, "God bless you." Every Christmas card would have "Jesus is watching over you" at the bottom of it. And in my social group, people just didn't care about religion. It's not that they were even motivated to feel antipathetic towards it. So that created a bit of a conflict in me because I was very religious when I was younger, went to church every Sunday. I felt I had this father figure in the sky looking down at me. And that was challenging because I knew I was gay. And it made me coming to terms with that identity quite hard. I remember going through my confirmation in particular and talking to the priest about it and being really dissatisfied with the answers he gave. About how I might reconcile my faith with my sexuality. And so my first step towards humanism was just becoming very critical of Christianity as an organized religion. I didn't think it worked for me. And that was a sad moment because it was not just moving away from religion, it was moving away in some sense from my sense of belonging to my family. Because as I say, this religion was very much a family trait in my experience growing up. But I did that. I did move away. I became what I considered culturally Christian, which is a very ambiguous phrase, but one which kept me comfortably and cozily within this little family of Christianity, while simultaneously able to push away all of the tenets that I didn't like. And at the time, I thought it was a little bit cheeky to cherry pick which parts of the faith I liked and to reject those I don't. But now I realize that pretty much all people of faith have to do that in order to maintain their faith in the societies in which we live today. So I've come to terms with that. But I've moved then from cultural Christianity towards agnosticism when I started to realize that your religious faith was so geographically bound up. And the reason I had this strong attachment to Christianity was because of where my grandparents had come from. And the reason so many of my friends had no sense of religious identity was because of where their grandparents had been born and what had been passed down to them. Religion is a kind of inherited trait, as it were. So I started to think, well, maybe there's a God, maybe there isn't, but certainly religions are just cultural artifacts. And that was a big switch in my head, because as soon as I realized that, I began to question, well, if the religions are cultural artifacts, why on earth shouldn't we question the very notion of God? And is God also a human invention, as invented as the religions which purport to know the God that they worship? And that moved me towards atheism. And by the end of my university career, I was a very confident and comfortable atheist. I didn't believe in God anymore. I didn't mind if other people did, and I think that's an important branch of humanist thinking, that secular idea. But it certainly didn't have any meaning for me anymore. But atheism is not a happy position to be in for a long time, because it defines you negatively. It simply says what you don't believe and says nothing about what you do believe. And for me, I'm quite a community-driven person. I'm social. I like to talk about ideas. That left me in a very uncomfortable state. I wanted to be telling people what I believe in, not what I don't believe in. And so when I found the label humanism through lots of wider reading and research, I was delighted. Finally, here was the label which told people positively about what I believe in. I believe that the universe can be explained through the scientific process rather than through authority and ancient texts. I believe that even without ancient texts, we can still make our moral decisions based on kindness and compassion. I believe that we should have a secular society where everyone's entitled to believe what they choose, as long as it doesn't give them any special privilege or encroach on the rights of other people. And I've been so happy being able to move forward with that simple kernel of philosophy as the core of my moral framework. So yeah, that's my journey to today.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think it's perfect that you'll be joining us for the What Humanism Means to Me event. I can see there that there's that real strong association with what it means to be humanist. Is there anything else, more personal to you in terms of what it means for you to be a humanist and to as you say, positively identify with that label?
I'm not sure. What do you mean? More personal?
I mean, we all know the general, as you say, the general gist of what it means to be, trust in the scientific method and universal human rights. But when we talk about what it means to be humanist, and obviously you're going to be our keynote speaker at the event, with when we say what, I guess the blunt question is, what does it mean to you to be humanist and identify?
I can try and answer. What does it mean to me personally? I mean, that is my personal journey to humanism. The important thing to me is that I can positively share with people what I do believe. I didn't like having to define myself in a negative. And I find that really motivating. I think having a kind of crystal clear expression of what your beliefs are helps you make decisions, helps you reorientate yourself in confusing situations, helps you solve the puzzle of any dilemma that walks into your life, because you've thought about, I mean, a lot of people don't think about their moral position. A lot of people don't think about their identity in that way, which is fair enough. But for those of us that do, it's really motivating and energizing to have a framework like that, which helps you navigate your way through the complexities of life. Maybe a good way of sharing what humanism means to me is to share a poem. A poem I've written which is called What's a Humanist? And if it doesn't fully answer the question,
Perfect.
at least it rhymes, James. And rhyme is always fun. What's a humanist? They trust in methodologies objective and specific. They describe observed phenomena in a manner scientific. They reject all explanations couched in ghosts or ghouls or spirits. They circumscribe their arguments with naturalistic limits. They ask to see the evidence before they reach conclusions. They prefer to confess ignorance than make up false solutions. They try to meet all human beings with kindness and compassion, and to treat all other animals in corresponding fashion. They've no evidence of afterlife, so reasonably deduce that this is the one life that we have of any earthly use. They put aside the magical claims of many an ancient text and instead use moral judgment to decide what to do next. So in answer to your question, having thought the whole thing through, I'd say it sounds a lot like me. Would you say it's like you?
That's beautiful. Well, thanks so much, Alex. Yeah.
Good song.
I think that encaptures it perfectly. Yeah. So, and that actually is quite interesting as well. It'd be good to find out about, you have so many strings to your bow. You're a teacher, you're an artist, you're a poet. When was it you said about discovering you were humanist, about discovering you were gay? When was it that you discovered that you were a poet?
That's a very kind question. I've always been a keen writer. Right from primary school, I enjoyed getting out my pen and paper and scribbling ideas down and forming them into something solid, which I thought was worth sharing with others. So in that sense, I've been a poet since my earliest years. And I think it's one of those self-fulfilling prophecies, because I was writing and putting my poetry out there as a child. I had lots of supportive adults around me who were giving me really positive feedback, saying, oh, we love this, or let's pin it up on the wall, or let's put you into this competition. And so I genuinely saw myself as a poet, even from a little kid just scribbling down doggerel. So I've got a lot of adults to thank for giving me the bug for writing. And I have to say, it's not always an enjoyable one. Writing is a relatively solitary task. You have to chain yourself behind your desk and get your laptop up and spend hours just writing away by yourself when you could be out there actually enjoying life and socializing with friends. So I sometimes think of it as a bit of an irritating obsession, but it's an itch I have to scratch, and I always enjoy the end product. I love having things which I feel have been prepared and sculpted, which I can share with people. I think some of my most enjoyable writing is playwriting as a consequence, because even though the writing itself is still solitary, the ultimate objective is to bring a group of people together, not just a cast of people who are going to rehearse the piece and then perform it, but also an audience who are going to watch and hopefully give you lots of feedback afterwards. And that's why I'm really happy to kind of get out there and share my poetry as well. I love reading my poetry out loud, because again, it's another way of inverting that feeling of writing being solitary and bringing it back to a communal event.
Yeah, and we look forward to hearing more as well. And are you working on anything at the moment? You mentioned, playwriting. Is there anything in the works?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. So the poetry that I'll be sharing with Central London Humanists is from a collection I've written called Secular Verses, and it's currently month by month being shared with the readers of Humanistically Speaking magazine. I don't know, James, if you're a subscriber. No, I heartily recommend it.
Maybe will be soon.
Yeah, please do sign up. It's completely free, and they'll drop it into your email inbox every month. And it's just a space where humanists get to talk about kind of contemporary issues, topical debates, and share different points of view. And I love it because when you talk about humanism to people who aren't humanists, they often think, oh, well, they must all have the same point of view on everything, which we certainly don't. And often that's one of the difficulties of humanist clubs as well, or societies. I've tried to run one a few times at the school where I teach, and it's so difficult because, we all gather together, sit and agree with one another for half an hour, which is not very edifying. Humanistically Speaking is deliberately subversive and puts controversial positions as well as competing points of view. And I just have a little poet's corner at the back of that magazine each month where I share some of these poems. So that's something I'm working on. I work as a singer as well as a writer, often performing under the name Tiger Jazz. And as the summer has come to a close, a lot of my gigs for this year have wrapped up now. I think the next busy period will be Christmas. But I love doing summer gigs, just getting out in the park and singing some of my favorite songs from the Great American Songbook. I also run an open mic night called the Dial Up, where we share, yes, poetry and song, but also we have people come and do whatever their creativity might be. We've had magicians, we've had dancers, we've had people come and share sections from novels they're working on. I love how varied it is. And although I don't advertise it this way, I often think of it as a sort of secular church, because as humanists, we don't really have a place to come to regularly as a group together to just enjoy being with each other and celebrate life and celebrate our creativity and our human potential. The Dial-Up is a space where you can do that. It doesn't matter what your faith is and whether you have none. You can come along and just be playful and share your poetry, your music, your song, your ideas. Anything else going on at the moment? Things I'm currently working on. I've just finished working on Heart's Pride, where I was singing again as Tiger Jazz. That was great fun. So yeah, I like to keep myself busy, James. Let's put it that way.
So I can tell, and I think you're absolutely right. It really speaks back to what you were saying at the start of the interview about how being a community, the community is important to you, and that's one of the things that I think is very difficult to replicate for particularly for people who've left faith. It's one of the things that faith does very well, and it's something that we should take more seriously, I think, in atheistic humanistic groups, and that, but also that ability to come together in song, and celebrate the arts collectively as well. So thank you very much for organizing all the things that you do,
No,
and bringing those,
you.
and bringing more art to the humanist movement.
Oh,
That's
thank you.
fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I think the work that Central London Humanists are doing in creating a community of humanists across London is fantastic, because without it, you can feel alone, even though we know that the largest sector of the population now are non-religious. It's still religious groups, as you say, which often have the strongest sense of community because they have something active which they gather around. They have festivals fixed in their calendar year. I'm glad to see Darwin Day celebrations and World Humanist Day celebrations increasing in their reach, but they're still very much under the radar for most people. Alain de Botton, in his book Religion for Atheists, suggests we should do these things called agape dinners. Have you heard of this? Where kind of once a month humanists gather at a fixed place, a large communal space where we could be together as a community and have a dinner together and just get to know each other and socialize. And I think in a way that's what you guys are doing in Central London Humanists, providing that space. So yeah, thank you.
Well, pleasure, and yeah, long may it continue. I think we are seeing a certain rise in the interest in coming along to these events, and definitely looking forward to hearing more from you next week. So, yeah, I guess final question: if anybody wants to follow everything that you're doing, what's the best way to find out more?
If you're on Facebook, then you can either go to Tiger Jazz to find out more about my singing, or the Dial Up to find out more about the open mic. But there's much more detail on my blog, which is thedialup.blogspot.com. And that will list all of my future performance dates. It's got videos and photos. It's got scripts and writing, everything you'd want to find out about there.
And if I may, could I ask, just before we go, would you mind to share us perhaps one more poem that you think is speaking to you at the moment?
Yeah, I'd be delighted to. This one's called Hummingbird. And as an English teacher, I'm an avid fan of a poet called Gerard Manley Hopkins, who wrote with something called spring rhythm, which has got this delicious bounce on the page. I've tried to replicate that bounce. He often writes about nature and the beauty of nature, which is something I feel intensely, which is another reason I adore his poetry. But he would always end his poems with praise God, or some sort of invocation of God's might in creating this natural wonder. And I just wanted to appreciate the nature without the necessity to take that last step. So this poem uses the hummingbird as a symbol of nature's beauty, but then just stops. It doesn't need to invent something supernatural to have the appreciation of nature's wonder. Hummingbird. What on earth more wondrous than a hummingbird exists? Nature's glory, floating sharp, a sliver, silver in a liquid air. Purple dash flash blue of slicing vibration, mocking gravity, drinking deep the lees of floral nectar hidden from less specialized imbibers. Bobbing wonder, flit of beauty, pinnacle of process, evolutionary, cousin of all life.
Alex Williams, thank you very much for joining us on Humanism Now.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.